Welcome back to Prep Station Literature. We'll continue from where we stopped. Death and apparition are used as dash in the novel. A. Symbol. B. Motif. C. Metaphor. D. Theme. They are used as a motif to explain the love between Catherine and Heathcliff. Like, when Catherine died, Heathcliff was ready to go out of his way. He kind of went mad to an extent. He became hostile and he almost ran mad when Catherine died, and he was not himself for a very long time. And it was said that the ghost, Catherine's ghost, was seen because at some point Heathcliff could see Catherine in the eyes of every young girl in the novel. So in this case, death and apparition are used as a motif in the play, in the novel Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff is a dash. A. Villain. B. Romantic hero. C. Foil. D. Pimp. The answer to this question is a romantic hero. Classics, as at that time, had romantic heroes in them. Not all, anyway. But in the case of Wuthering Heights, we see Heathcliff going out of his way and the things he did just to prove to Catherine that he was, despite their social status, he could actually take care of her, and he was deeply in love with Catherine. His marriage to Isabella was just done out of infatuation anyway. He just wanted to get married for the sake of getting married. So in this case, he loved Catherine dearly. And at the end of the day, even when she died, he was still, before she died, he was still around Thrushcross Grange. When he succeeded in gambling and got to Thrushcross Grange, because Catherine got married to Edgar, he came to see her. And at some point, he still snuck and went about visiting Catherine in the novel. So he did all he could to prove his love for Catherine. And Catherine, on the other hand, too, was also in love with Heathcliff. But owing to the social status at that point, she could not bring herself to marry him anyway. And then till she died, her ghost was everywhere. And so he was bent on, he also wanted to die to join her. So he could be described as a romantic hero. We'll look at the play Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. The first question, who was Madeline? A. Jimmy's mom. B. Jimmy's ex-girlfriend. C. Alison's mom. D. Cliff's girlfriend. The answer to this question is B. Jimmy's ex-girlfriend. Madeline in the novel was older than Jimmy, and he dated her before he got married to Alison. 42. Colonel Redfern leaves the Maharaja's army in India in dash. A. 1915. B. 1914. C. 1945. D. 1947. The answer to this question is 1947. Colonel Redfern is Alison's father. So at that time the novel was set, at that time the play was set, it was done after the World War II. At the time the novel was set, and then the situation around it. So Alison's dad was a colonel in the army. The straight-backed chinless monster who went to Sandhurst. This expression describes A. Hugh Tanner, B. Alison, C. Helena, D. Nigel. The answer is Nigel. Nigel is Alison's brother. And the person who made this statement is actually Jimmy, because Jimmy made fun of Alison's family. He was always abusing members of her family. And this person being referred to was Nigel. We'll look at The Lion and the Jewel by Wole Soyinka. 44. Baroka the ballet is dash years old. How old is Baroka? That's the question. A. 65. B. 63. C. 64. D. 62. The answer to this question is 62. Baroka the ballet of Ilujinle was actually 62 years old. Which of the following is not a technique in the play? A, play within a play. B, unity of time. C, mime. D, allegory. Of course, The Lion and the Jewel, Wole Soyinka makes use of certain elements whereby you have a play within a play. Remember, the play acted, that is the mime, that's the dance of the lost traveler. Unity of time, as events are done morning, noon, and night. Then mime, the mime the mime acted in the play that shows the dance of a lost traveler. That is a technique. And it's not an allegory because the characters are not basically symbolic of other characters in today's world. So the answer is an allegory. We'll look at A Midsummer's Night Dream by William Shakespeare. You must note that sometimes when you are asked questions on the literature text for UTME, excerpts are brought out from books, and there's every possibility that A Midsummer's Night Dream excerpts would be brought out from there. You might be asked who is being referred to in the dialogue or in the who the character is referring to. 46. To win Hippolyptia's love, the Duke dash. The Duke being referred to is Theseus. I believe we know that. A, had to fight against her. B, disowned his friends. C, killed his father. D, sent Puck away. Now, Theseus is the Duke, and he had to fight Hippolyptia, who is the queen of the Amazons, before he could win, to prove his love for her anyway. So he didn't disown his friends, and then he did not kill his father, and he had no business with Puck. So the answer to the question is A. Puck changes Bottom's head to that of Dash. A lion. B, an ass. C, a scroll. D, a donkey. The answer is an ass. Remember that there was a fight between Oberon and his wife, the queen of fairies, and Oberon and Titania. And as a result, Oberon told Puck to go and put the love potion on the eyelids of his wife. So in doing that, the potion was such that if she should wake up, whoever she sees, the first person she sees, she's expected to fall in love with that person. And then Bottom and his friends were acting in the woods. They were also trying to do their own presentation for the marriage of the Duke and Hippolyptia. But at that point, he changed the head of Bottom. Puck changed the head of Bottom to an ass. So when Tatiana woke up, that was what she saw, and she was going round and then running around the woods. So that was what happened there. 48. What was the consequence for rejecting a suitor from one's parents in the play? A, death. B, escape. C, imprisonment. D, banishment. The answer to this question is death, because Aegeus was of the view that his daughter Hermia had to marry the person he chose for her, which was Demetrius. And in Athens, if you go against your parents' choice suitor, it's expected that the person dies, that the person will be killed. That was the law as at that time. But of course, no parent will want his or her child to die. And that was why Hermia with Lysander, her lover, had to escape to the woods, because they knew very well that the law would not work in that part of the country. It was only in Athens. So that was the consequence for rejecting. Although at the end of the day, Hermia got married to Lysander on the day she was supposed to be killed, or she was expected to die. We'll look at poetry, and we'll look at some of the poems that are recommended for UTME. The first is the type of the government driver on his retirement. That's the first poem. So we'll look at the question. The type of irony used in the poem A Government Driver on His Retirement is dash. A, verbal irony. B, situational irony. C, irony. D, hyperbole. The answer to this question is situational irony. It's a situational irony because the driver in the poem who has served the government for 35 years and has been driving people to safety. On the day of his retirement, he couldn't drive himself home, so he ended up driving himself to his death. That is the situation. So it's a situational irony. That's the answer B. In Niyi Osundare's poem, The Leader and the Led, which animal is far from other animals? A. Warthog. B. Zebra. C. Hyena. D. Giraffe. The warthog in that poem was described as being too ugly and riotous. The zebra was described as a leader owing to the duplicity of its stripes. That's a cunning leader. The hyenas were described as followers who didn't want, I think, the lion to lead them. Then the giraffe was described as a type of leader whose eyes were too far from the ground. So in this case, the answer is the giraffe. 51. The expression, even the corpses thrown up by the Atlantic in the grieved lands of Africa by Agostino Neto is dash A. Metaphorical. B. Symbolic. C. Allusive. D. Metonymic. Of course, these words metaphorical, symbolic, allusive, and metonymic come from metaphor, symbolic, allusion, and metonymic. The answer is allusive because it's from the word allusion, where the poet makes reference to incidents that have happened in history or in the Bible or events generally. So in this case, even the corpses thrown up by the Atlantic refers to slave trade. So it's an allusion because the poet has made reference to slave trade. 52. The poem The Good Morrow by John Donne can be classified as A. Metaphysical poetry, B. Romantic poetry, C. Didactic poetry, D. Pastoral poetry. The answer to this question is metaphysical poetry. It's not a romantic poetry because romantic poetry is a type of poem written in the romantic period where a poet appreciates nature and things around. Didactic is for moral lessons, and then pastoral has its own. But in this case, it's a metaphysical poem. In the poem Song of the Women of My Land, dash is lost in the vast void of time. The answer to this question is lyrics. The women sang songs, but the lyrics are lost in the vast void of time because after a while, the children's children, the generations forget the words. So the lyrics are lost in the vast void of time. 54 rather. The dominant figures of speech in Lade Wansuru's Radar of Treasure Trove are dash and dash. A. Alliteration and metaphor. B. Alliteration and irony. C. Irony and personification. D. Personification and metaphor. The poem Radar of Treasure Trove, in this case, the radar is what rage does. Okay? So it's not alliteration and metaphor. Neither is it alliteration and irony or irony and personification. It's personification and metaphor in this case because rage is being compared to certain things. And it's a personification because rage is giving human attributes. Rage is seen as a thief, rage is seen as a chief thief, and rage wastes the time of people in this case. So rage is given a human character and it is compared directly. So that is why it's a personification and a metaphor. 55. The poem Black Woman by Leopold Sedar Senghor is a poem of negritude for the following reasons, except A. It appreciates African beauty. B. It appreciates African natural environment. C. It relates African experience. D. It uses African woman as a symbol. The answer to this question is D. It uses the African woman as a symbol. Black Woman by Leopold Sedar Senghor is a poem that celebrates negritude. Negritude is a concept that means Negro attitude. that talks about how Africa as a continent is. Africa and the way of life of the African people, basically. So in this case, the poem is such that it appreciates the African beauty, yes, and it appreciates the African natural environment. It also relates to African experience, but it doesn't necessarily use the African woman as a symbol, because yes, it's talking about black woman, but it's also talking about the continent of Africa. So the answer to this question is D. John Donne's The Good Morrow is a metaphysical poem because A, it centers on love, B, it compares two hemispheres, C, it relates the poet's past escapades, D, it consists of extended metaphors. Yes, the answer to this question is D, it consists of extended metaphors. The metaphors are not your usual direct comparisons. The metaphors are extended. That's the answer, D. 57. In the poem Bat by D.H. Lawrence, the tone of the poet towards bats is that of dash. A, admiration, B, disgust, C, love, D, appreciation. The answer to this question is disgust, because the poet persona is disgusted by the bats flying and talks about their characters. The fact that they sleep upside down and then they have like a smile on their face when they're sleeping, and they have serrated wings like that of an umbrella and all of that. He talks about their characteristics, but he's disgusted because he actually thought the birds flying at that time of the day were swallows, and then only for him to discover that they were bats making noise around him. And at the end of the day, the last line he goes, in China, bats are a symbol of happiness, not for me. So that alone tells you that the poet's persona was actually disgusted by the bats. 58. Which of the following is not an experience of the Magi in the poem The Journey of the Magi by T.S. Eliot? A, the camels became sore-footed. B, the journey was in the cold time of the year. C, they met at summer palaces. D, the people charged high prices. All these, there were certain situations when the Magi were traveling, okay, and at that point, there were certain things they experienced, such as their camels that had sore foot, and then the journey was at the cold time of the year, a cold coming, we had of it, that's winter, and then the people charged high prices. They had nowhere to stay because most of the inns at that time were booked. So the poem is such that it alludes to the Christmas story, the birth of Jesus Christ. And the Magi traveling at that time, they did not travel when it was summer. So it was a cold time, because even some of the lines give you a clue as to what time of the year they traveled. So the answer is C, they met at summer palaces. Okay, so we have come to the end of literature. I wish you all the best in this exam. Thank you.